You can wear the same pair of underwear twice, front, back, inside out the other way. This Week in E-Commerce, episode 117. I am Mal Cheer, and with me is Alex Ross. Alex, how are you?
I'm good, Mal. Normally we record in the mornings. It's later in the afternoon today after a fair few calls. So let's see how we go.
Look, I got to say, it's December, and I know that, for retailers, things start to wind down. But I got to say, for me, it actually seems busier than the last couple of weeks in November, which was actually pretty chill for me as I just kind of watch the results come in. Now it's like a whole lot of reporting and a whole lot of planning for 2026, which I need to do now.
Yep. And everyone's got the cash to think about their next investments. It's good. A successful Black Friday means everyone's gearing to go.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And speaking of cash, actually, there was an announcement earlier today from the RBA who've announced that they're going to be holding the cash rate at 3.6%. Absolutely zero surprises. We've been saying this for quite a while, that it's probably going to be held for the foreseeable future, especially with inflation continuing to go up. Anyway, just want to put that one out there. And I also want to make another quick mention as well of a story which I've been watching, which is nothing to do with retail, but very related to competition, which is Netflix's bid to buy Warner Brothers Discovery.
Yes. What did you think of the news?
I hope that this doesn't make it through the courts and that all the anti-competition watchdogs will be all over this, because it's not good for the industry. Consolidation at this scale is not good. We already kind of see that in tech already, where we've got Google, Apple, Meta, etc., who dominate a large part of the industry. And that never works out well for consumers. And to think that streaming could be consolidated with a number one and number three streamer, which is Netflix and HBO Max, can be consolidated, isn't going to be good for consumers. Prices will go up because there'll be less choice.
I agree. And I think it's not good for creativity as well, right? We're not going to see those smaller players get the opportunity to create and get eyeballs on them like we used to.
Yep, absolutely. Especially when you imagine that Warner Brothers have a huge catalog, and that's just going to be owned by one entity now, which has full access to that. It just means there's going to be less going around, and there's fewer people, exactly what you said, for producers to be able to actually get their films made. So for creatives to go and actually make their art, make their craft, they're going to be limited by the choices of who can actually afford them, which means that Netflix will be able to dictate the terms essentially of how much they're going to invest into different projects. So anyway, let's see what happens. Hope it doesn't go through. I saw that Paramount put in an even larger bid today to purchase Warner Brothers. But what's crazy to me is that the valuations they're giving it are like significantly above what the market price actually is. It's something like 4 to 8x.
Right. Interesting. They put in a bid today. Kind of like, these are your final offers, last chance. And then they go, oh, but actually we had more to give. It's like, well, too late.
All right, let's dive into retail now, because again, there's been a very, very big week in retail. We're going to cover off some Black Friday numbers, as well as also the under 16 social media ban, which kicked off today. But before we dive into that, Bunnings, the most trusted brand in Australia for the last couple of years, have found themselves in a little bit of a quandary around their AI chatbot. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so my understanding is their chatbot gave advice on how to fix an electrical problem to a consumer in Queensland, and the state laws there require that particular edit to require a licensed electrician to make those maintenance changes. So the chatbot isn't familiar with the nuances of state law.
I read this and I thought, yes, it is actually correct that it did give legal advice. But in the grand scheme of things, I kind of look at it and go, it's a minor thing. Yes, it's going to miss some things. How did it know that someone was in Queensland? Was that specifically outlined in the chat? That's probably something which it needed to find out. But it's not like Grok telling everyone that Elon Musk is the most amazing human being on the planet and more athletic than LeBron James, right? It's not Mecha Hitler.
Oh, I agree. I think it was a bit of a clickbait title, in my opinion. When I actually read through the article, I was like, okay, it's not that bad. But it's good that they've picked it up now and they can make those updates.
Yep. But something else to watch out for, just to make sure that if you are using an AI chatbot, to make sure you do have those guardrails in place and you are properly training the bot as well. All right, the second story is Step One, which is the darling of the underwear scene here in Australia. They have expected a 31 to 37% sales slump, and they're expecting a $9 to $10 million loss this year, which is fairly significant when you think about this business, which has really in the last few years grown to become the largest player in its space.
Are you a step one consumer, Mel?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, it's massive business for. I'd never even considered them. I know I'm not their customer, but yeah, I think 10 million slow moving inventory. It's a scary place to be. I don't know why underwear needs to have I don't know, the turnaround. It's not trendy. Like you can wear the color of last season and still sell it, but they're predicting it. So we'll see how we go.
It's a very fickle marketplace as well, especially when you think it is essentially a commodity. Underwear is underwear, more or less speaking. And there's a lot of brands out there. There's Step One, there's Nobbies, as well as like the old guard, like the Bonds, right? And even like a newer brand like Tradie, which is coming in. And how much are people willing to actually pay for underwear when they can just pop down to Kmart, buy something off the shelf for like a 5-pack for like $20 versus buying one single pair of boxer briefs for $25 on Step One? So I think at the time when they launched, it was a really cool business. They were really doing a lot of innovative things post-COVID, but now the market's kind of catching up to them as well. And particularly in a cost of living crisis, people are looking more for value as well. And I also think they've also expanded too quickly as well by trying to move into a lot of different categories, meaning that then inevitably, if the business is slowing down and you're releasing more and more product, that's going to catch up with you. And I suspect that's kind of what's happening here as well.
Part of me, I know I always say this for like recession indicator and people are buying less underwear. We're really going back and refining off the basics.
Well, as an older male, you can wear the same pair of underwear twice, front, back, inside out the other way, right?
Yep.
So
No, I did see a funny meme yesterday, and it was like your old pair of underwear that's like hanging by a thread, watching you buy a brand new pair of sneakers that you don't need, or a new outfit for the dog, and your underwear is just hanging on for dear life.
and there are actually health reasons to buy new underwear as well. And from what I understand, you should be replacing your underwear every 6 months. I got to say, I certainly don't do that. My wife certainly would wish I did, but it is something where we should be buying it more often. Hence why it's actually a really good business to be in. But you need to make sure that you can carve out some sort of competitive niche. And I don't know if Step One have been able to maintain that, even though the business has gone really well for a number of years. Obviously, they've IPO'd, whether they're going to be able to maintain this, because like $10 million excess inventory is a lot, aged inventory, which you can't shift, as well as a $10 million operating loss. All right. And speaking of other businesses which are also winding down, is that Go-To Skincare are winding down their children's division, which is the Gro-To product, which I actually thought when I saw it a few years ago had a really, really cool brand. It looked amazing. But Zoë Foster Blake has very quietly announced on the 25th of November, amidst all the Black Friday noise, that they're going to be closing down the Gro-To brand. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, I thought the timing was very interesting when just doing a bit of research this morning on what's been happening in the last week. And I saw this pop up and I thought, I haven't seen that on Instagram. I haven't seen it on TikTok. So it's definitely been a quiet announcement. But like you said, an amazing brand. Zoe absolutely nails it every time. So I'm sad to see it go, and I'm interested as to why.
Look, I think like anything else, it's like if you're closing it down, you're closing it down for a reason. And that's likely because of underperformance. And reading through the article, it really speaks to the fact that it's about the focus as well, that it is about they're trying to deliver a really great experience across 3 brands. And one had to go, particularly when it doesn't really align with who their core customer is. So it becomes a bit of a distraction unless you can actually dedicate resources towards it. It's like if you have one team trying to market 3 different brands, something's got to give, right? Particularly when Go-To Skincare is likely still the hero. That's the cash cow. So that's typically where attention will go. So then how do you split the time up amongst 2 other brands?
I agree with you, but then I also think they've got Gro-To for the guys. So the type of consumer that's buying, and we're just going to get gendered here. She's buying Go-To, she's getting her partner Gro-To, and she's getting the kids Gro-To. There's still some alignment there, but I appreciate the need for focus. And I think the other piece of the puzzle here is that Go-To are moving into skincare. Sorry, they're moving into beauty and growing their skincare as well. So they're really focused on the potential for that business.
And it's something which we've talked about before in terms of like having a boring business, which just kind of laser focuses on one thing. And this is actually something which I've seen quite a bit through Black Friday with a lot of brands who are discounting are the ones who are discounting quite heavily are the ones who've actually tried to expand quite quickly. And you see all these little bets they've tried to place into other categories. They're just marking it down now 80% because it hasn't taken off for them. And I suspect this might be the similar thing as well, where they've tried to expand into a category, hasn't really worked out. They're backpedaling fast, reallocating towards something else which will work. And I think doubling down on that go-to customer is probably the right move as well, because like I said, that is likely their cash cow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's probably one other piece there is that the packaging of Grow-To really fun for kids. But once you've got that bottle, you can just refill what you get from Woolworths or Foodland or wherever. So there's probably that value piece of them
It's
missing
like
out.
the old Aesop thing with
Exactly.
the Aesop hand wash. It's like, do you actually know that's Aesop? I couldn't tell, generally
As long
speaking.
as the kids are excited for their shampoo, doesn't matter what's in the bottle.
Yeah, although I just think that's just like all the real estate agents who are buying all the empty Aesop bottles and filling it up with whatever for, for the open inspections.
Yeah.
All right, and our last quick story for the day is Smiggle continuing to struggle as well. So Premier Brands, which owns Smiggle along with Peter Alexander, have flagged really sluggish sales as a reason for a sharp decline in their earnings in the last quarter.
Yeah, I think keen to hear your thoughts on this. A little bit for me is keeping a brand cool, keeping a brand fresh through new generations. And Smiggle, they were massive when I was a kid. So they've had to have more iterations and they don't seem to have made much of a change to when they were massive 20 years ago.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. Like in terms of like the designs and the store aesthetic, it's been very similar for at least the last decade or so. But also a large part of what Solomon Lew is blaming as well, and I don't disagree, is the cost of living crisis. When you look at things like stationery, do you want to pay $20 for a notepad, or will you just go get a $2 notepad instead, which functionally does the same thing? And particularly since it's the parent buying, they're the ones who are making that call. And also, when you look at some of these more discount brands as well, whether it be Kmart, Target, Big W, their assortment is actually becoming much trendier as well than what it used to be. Growing up, it was always really crappy looking, but now it actually looks pretty okay. Not necessarily on par and as well designed as a Smiggle, but good enough that you could kind of pass muster at school.
Yeah, yeah. As long as the kid's happy, I think that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Even Officeworks have some pretty cool stationery these days as well, which I was impressed with.
They do. So again, like the same point which you made before, how does Smiggle stay ahead? How does it continue to remain cool? And then I read another interesting article today. I can't actually remember who posted on LinkedIn, just saying that Premier, because they've sold off a lot of brands, they're now heavily reliant on Peter Alexander and Smiggle. So from a cash flow perspective and a sales perspective, this puts even more pressure on Peter Alexander to continue to drive revenue. And you wonder how hard you can actually push that brand, considering they already are discounting and on sale quite a lot and very reliant on licensing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love Peter Alexander, so I hope they continue to be the leader in the group. But I have seen some discourse on the internet just about the quality and things like that. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
there was the AI dog campaign we spoke about, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, it looked kind of cool and it was definitely caught attention, but it was all AI. It was very obviously AI too.
yeah, for sure.
All right, now we're going to get into our deep dives. And our first one we're going to talk about is loyalty. And this comes from an Inside Retail article, which showed about how loyalty has shifted. Now, there was a fantastic white paper which followed this as well, with this report showing that loyalty is no longer about points and discounts, and it's moving more towards recognition as well. In particular, things like identity, belonging, and just being seen by a brand.
Look, I loved this article in terms of the title got me when it said, yeah, loyalty is about recognition because we've been talking a lot about AI in the creative sense and how to know that there was a brand that created this product or this visual initially and then it's being ripped by AI. And that speaks to that recognition piece and having loyal shoppers that know your content, know your product, and are ready to call you out. So I 100% agree. I think brand recognition is the future of loyalty beyond just the basic, boring point system.
And this is no surprises for me in this paper. So Zeta Global were actually the ones who commissioned this study, and it involved a lot of the biggest names in retail, particularly in loyalty and retention marketing here in Australia, across brands like Adore Beauty, LSKD. One thing is that I've never believed that points were an effective mechanism to drive loyalty as well. Like, it'll create a behavior, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's loyalty, because loyalty is more than just coming back and buying from you once. It's buying when that discount isn't necessarily there. And the best brands I've ever seen, and you talk about ones like Nudie Jeans, is that they have a lot of loyalty, but they also don't really discount or really have anything like that, because people just love the product and what it stands for. You look at something like Patagonia. I was at Good Things Festival, a heavy music festival, and I reckon I saw about a dozen or so people not wearing band t-shirts, but wearing Patagonia t-shirts. And everyone, when you go to a festival, they're putting something on them to make a statement about, this is who I am. And putting that logo on you is kind of the ultimate test of loyalty. Does someone want to put their logo on themselves, or would they get it tattooed on themselves? And that doesn't happen through discount. Discount, if anything, actually reduces the brand perception, because you just become cheap, and no one's going to walk around with like a black and gold logo on their chest, unless they're doing it ironically, right?
We'll see. It could be a cool t-shirt, but I gotta love Patagonia. We could do a 2-hour episode on them and I still wouldn't talk enough. Fantastic brand. I think part of it a little bit as well is this concept of points, and I'll draw off Qantas. They just keep on changing the goalposts on us. So, even though the value of the t-shirt isn't worth what it's worth when it's discounted, the value of a point isn't what it was worth before when they changed it. So as consumers, I don't think we can rely on that as much as we used to be able to.
Yeah, look, and frequent flyer points are probably the best example of a really good loyalty program, because it doesn't target everyone. It's really focusing on the people who fly very, very often, who will be loyal to that airline because of the status it confers of them to be a gold or a platinum or above, or a platinum one in Qantas's case. Because you want that recognition. You want to be able to sit at the front of the plane. You want to be able to pick the seats you want. You want to be able to change your flight at a moment's notice and not get charged for it, because you fly at a certain status. And that's really what it's about. It's a recognition that you are a loyal customer. And you don't need to discount for that. Matter of fact, airlines actually increase the price during times of high demand. I'm a loyal customer. I don't pay any less than anyone else for a Qantas flight. In some cases, I end up paying more because I fly with them all the time, because I'm loyal to them rather than flying with another brand. Similarly, in this case, in retail, there's so many other products, like comparable products out there. How do you convince someone that, hey, do you know what? You should always buy that particular product from me. In this category, only buy your activewear from LSKD or Muscle Republic or any brand like that. And it's because of that recognition. It's because of the status they confer on you by being that loyal customer. Is that actually something which is going to be meaningful for me? And the brands I see do this really well are the ones who can create those experiences which bring you into their ecosystem and make you want to stay, because you provide additional experiences and recognition of them as being a loyal customer.
Absolutely. Mecca with their beauty loop, great example where they've got that kind of the status, not the points. And it's that surprise and delight, if anything. You've got that extra perk you didn't even go into the store for, but you're leaving with, and they look after you.
Yep, absolutely. And Lululemon's another brand as well, which do that through community by organizing events, organizing things which bring their loyal customers together rather than giving out a discount. So what's your advice then for someone who's looking to build a loyalty program in 2026?
Have a great product, have a strong brand that values your product and your consumer, and don't go to the bottom on discounts and points and outdated systems.
Yeah.
What's your
Roughly about the same. It's really just going back to understanding the psychology of a customer and really understanding what can you do to make that person feel really special and really feel connected with your brand. One of the most overused words we have in marketing and in e-commerce is always talking about building community. This is for the community. But do you really have a community, or do you just have a database? A real community are people who actually come together around you, who coalesce around your brand during certain events. I look at a brand like Black Milk as being a brand which actually has community, because they have community meetups which they don't even know about. Random black milk customers in countries and cities all around the world will just have meetups and do like swap their black milk products. And the company doesn't even know about that. But it's amazing to see. That is community, because you've built something where people want to connect around.
I mean, look, Mecca's got a similar situation as well, where they've got this massive Facebook group, like tens of thousands of community members, and they're not even in the group. They don't moderate it. They just let their clients talk about the products and what they've got next. It's not about the product or the cash.
Yep, love that. Love that. All right, our second deep dive is going to be some Black Friday insights, which are very, very early, given that Black Friday really only ended about 7-8 days ago. And this was really interesting that we've actually seen across the board, and this is data coming from Shopify and Zip, that there has been significant growth here in Australia. So number one is that APAC merchant sales were up 28%, so huge number from Shopify customers. Australia was the number 3 top selling country globally for Shopify. Would love to see the per capita numbers for that because it would be wild, I'd imagine. But then further to that, then this one I found really interesting was that point of sale sales was up 54% year on year, which is huge.
The cynic in me goes, we've trained our customers so much to rely on Black Friday that, yes, these numbers are up, but then the rest of the year isn't as up proportionally, right? So people are spending more on Black Friday because they're getting ramped up to it, they're getting the discounts. And I think that shows with us being the number top 3 country in the world that's spending at Black Friday.
Yeah, look, I don't think you're being cynical at all. I think that speaks the truth to the matter. I was talking with a friend of mine in the US who used to be the chairman of some fairly large retail brands, and we were talking about Black Friday. And what I said to him was that we've come to accept the fact that we're going to accept 11 crap months for one pretty good month. It doesn't kind of erase the sins of the other 11 months, but for some reason we've kind of fetishized this one period to be everything which it means to retail. And that's a bit of a scary proposition. So I think you're right. These numbers do bear that out. We're seeing that huge demand increase, and it's increasing every single year for this 1 month of the year.
Yeah. And then what's your take on the point of sale number up 54% year on year?
Well, again, the cynic in me is that that's a Shopify number, and Shopify point of sale is still growing. It's not quite saturated across the market yet to be the majority. So I think there's probably some nuance in terms of that number, that yes, it's probably up 54% for Shopify merchants, but that could also be the fact that it's actually becoming more prevalent across there as well. If you look at other point of sale systems like H&L, Redcat, etc., if you aggregated all that, I'd be curious to see what that shows. But if you take these numbers at face value alone, we're seeing again that omnichannel starting to grow, of people actually starting to use both of those channels, and Black Friday becoming more of a in-store event as well, where historically, going back 6-7 years ago, it was largely online.
Yeah.
But now in-stores doing it more too.
100%. I agree. I think there's an uptake in customers using that, the POS system. But hearing anecdotally from brands that we work with, they are seeing Black Friday become stronger in store, where, as you said, it used to be a traditionally online moment.
Yeah, and look, anecdotally as well, I've been speaking with some other people in the retail space. Shout out to Dean Slackers, who was saying that there were people who were that in store on Black Friday, on the actual Friday, was significantly up. That there were a lot of people who were going in store on those days to do their shopping. So even though a lot of online sales start much, much earlier, Black Friday actual is still the number one day, and people come not just shopping online, but also in store too.
And I think it's the in-store event, it's really becoming that what Boxing Day used to be. When everyone's lining up to go into the stores and see what they can get their hands on.
I remember the videos of like where people would be fighting to get into the stores. They'd roll up the doors and like every man and his dog would be rushing in to buy their Boxing Day sales.
Yeah. And being the retail worker that's getting there early, like unlocking the door and already seeing people line up, you're like, oh, great.
Luckily, I've never actually had to work a Boxing Day because people don't tend to want to buy CDs and records on Boxing Day. But I have been there at midnight when the doors have opened with my mum, and then later in life with various partners going there. There was another point of data from this report about Zip actually showed that 50% of their buy now pay later transactions happened in store as well, and that also kind of bears that out. Where BNPL was very much an online phenomenon, now it's also translating to in store and groceries, scarily enough.
Oh yeah, I've seen it at the dentist, and those types of services as well. Yeah, it's a bit scary.
Okay, and our final deep dive for the day is Australia's under 16 social media ban has finally started, which means that for a lot of social media platforms such as your Facebooks, your TikToks, Pinterest, YouTube, if you're under 16 years old, you will now require age verification in order to be able to access these platforms. Now, this is actually something which is like a world first. No other country in the world or jurisdiction in the world has actually such restrictions before. And I never actually really thought about it from a retail point of view till a client actually asked me the other day, and I actually didn't know what the answer was. So what do you see is going to happen here, Alex?
I think we'll see how well these global companies play to Australian laws and how this comes out in practice. One argument I've seen, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but around like social literacy and being able to use these platforms safely, and also being able to understand, the best use for them. Restricting people until they're 16 years old isn't realistic in today's day and age.
Interesting, because I didn't start using social media till I was like in my early 20s, I don't think, maybe 18, 19 at the very earliest. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to stop people from coming onto these platforms. I guess from a marketer's point and an advertiser's point of view is that suddenly you're going to have a lot of people who can't see your ads anymore, because I'm not sure whether people know this, is that if you're underage, you still get ads on these platforms. They're just not targeted, and you rely on the algorithms to determine if you're underage, what ads it's going to show you. So I hope it does a pretty good job of that. Not being 16, I don't know whether it's serving you pornography or alcohol or anything like that, but I'd expect that it wouldn't. So suddenly you kind of lose this whole big pool of people who could potentially be seeing your ad. And while this shouldn't affect most retailers, if you are targeting that younger market, either with teen fashion or teen makeup or even video games, you're not going to be able to anymore because their accounts aren't going to be there. So how do you reach that audience?
Podcasts.
Yeah.
The drive home, because I was going to say radio, but do the kids listen to radio on their drive home anymore? Probably not. You've got to get on the podcasts that are appropriate for ages.
Yeah.
No, it's an interesting challenge, because I think it makes retailers rely on traditional media channels. We typically know that people under 16 aren't using those traditional media channels. Let's see how creative some brands get.
Look, and I think the other thing as well is also around viral trends as well. Like most of these trends do start on platforms like TikTok, whether it's something like 6'7" or anything else. And a lot of these, a lot of the language as well, like skibbity toilet. These are words which have become part of, the cultural zeitgeist, which occur on these social media platforms. And suddenly you're not going to have those kids who are the ones who are initially learning it and then spreading it. And then it kind of comes up to like older folks like you and I, primarily me, through the younger generation. If they're not seeing it anymore, you're going to start to see this slowdown, I think, in terms of how trends go from the kids up to older generations. And what's that going to do for marketing as well, as that viral loop actually becomes slower? That's one, just from a marketing point of view, I'm very interested in to see whether it's going to have any meaningful impact on that side of things.
Yeah, and Australian culture generally as well, because we know the rest of the world's kids aren't restricted. So we've got that element of missing out on whatever those trends might be.
Yeah, and look, and the other thing to keep in mind as well, and this is a story from a couple of weeks ago, which found that Mark Zuckerberg had actually suppressed internal Facebook research, which showed that teens who were off Facebook had better mental health than teens who are on Facebook.
Well, we're not surprised that he suppressed that.
No.
We all knew that. So that's a good start. Hopefully the younger generation of Australia is happier and healthier mentally.
Look, I think that is ultimately what the goal is here. But in terms of impacts for retailers, do you see anything short term which they need to watch out for, if they're not selling like a product which is targeted at teens?
I think it kind of goes back to who has the purchasing power. For the most part, it's the parents still, but they need someone in their ear telling them what they want. Who dictates what's cool now? I don't think it's the mums. That's a broad statement, but you know what I mean. Sorry, mums out there. So yeah, I think it's interesting. It's world first, like you said, so we don't really know.
Yeah, we're going to be watching this one really, really closely over the coming months and even years, I'd imagine, just to see what the research comes out with.
Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. All right, that's all we have time for this week on This Week in E-Commerce. As we wind up the year, we are going to be preparing very soon for 2026, and we'll be letting you know shortly about what our Crystal Ball series for January is going to look like. We're very excited about that.
Yes, and I think we've still got time next week to do more of an end of year wrap up and start to focus on that too.
We certainly do. All right, everyone, have a fantastic weekend. I've forgotten the closing for this. I can't believe that. Keep innovating, keep growing, and keep selling. And we'll be back next week.
Thanks, everyone.